Well, good morning, guys, and welcome back to Tack, Unbridled. I'm your host, Daniel. How is everybody doing today? I know here in Central Virginia, we are going through a heat spell like, oh my goodness. It's been a week solid of 100-degree plus days, and the humidity, you could cut it with a knife. It's just unbearably disgusting out there. I got so many projects and stuff I want to work on at home outside, and I just try to get up like early in the morning, go outside, I'll beat the heat. But no, you get out first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock, you walk out, it's 85 degrees. It's just, absolutely disgusting. So hope everybody is hanging in there and doing well. Today, this episode, we're going to talk about competition. And competition can mean a couple different things, a few different things. It doesn't always necessarily have to be a bad thing. Competition, the old saying, competition brings out the best in you. Sometimes that absolutely is the case. And sometimes competition doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be an absolutely good thing. But on the flip side of the coin, absolutely, competition can be horrible, can be cutthroat, can be terrible. You just have to, adjust to the situation and make the most out of it. Competition is, it's always going to be there, no matter what kind of business you are in, no matter what you are doing, competition is there. I guess unless you're a utilities company, then you have the monopoly. You can charge and do whatever you want. But I'm nearly positive none of us, here, especially anybody watching this podcast, we don't own a monopoly. So you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to deal with competition. And like I said, there's, I'm going to go over some examples here of, my competition. Sometimes I'll name names, but most of the time I'm not going to name names. And, this is, like I said, I've said before, this is our 15th year doing this. And there's been a lot of competition that's come and gone. There's competition that's still there. We deal with every day. There's, I say loosely, competition that we've become great friends with and have been extremely helpful. And I wouldn't, consider it any other way. And there's also that competition that I have nothing nice to say about, and they're completely cutthroat and horrible individuals. And you can't let that dictate who you are and what you offer and the direction of your business, because it could be a slippery slope. I made that mistake in the early years of letting it kind of mold me into I don't want to say an angry individual, but it made me extremely upset what some of this competition of ours was doing and how they were handling things, and it made me miserable, made me extremely stressed. I was losing sleep over it. It was hurting my health. But I've come to the realization that I really don't have any control over what they do and how they act and how they run their business. All I can do is, all I have control over is my business. And, you can use that to your benefit. You can, offer things the competition doesn't offer and do services that they don't offer and treat customers better, and it will help you. So even though they are a cutthroat company and they do everything, excuse me, everything that you don't believe in, it helps you in the long run because it lets you know what you need to do and what needs to be done, and how to, basically do everything opposite of them. Um, so, let me get into some details of, my, or I should say, Mad Tack's um, competition. What I've had to deal with through the years. So, in the like I said, in the first 2 years, we were a mobile unit only, and excuse me, I need to get a drink of water here. There we go. That's much better. So when we were a mobile unit, we would go to horse shows and expos and events and stuff like that, and we always had to be invited to go to those. And there was times where there were other mobile tack vendors, and that was fine. Champion Saddlery is one that we bumped into quite a bit, and they put our mobile unit to shame. They've got this practically tractor trailer completely filled and really set up nice, but they were always good people. I never had any issues with them. And we could always set up, side by side or at least at the same event, and all was fine. There was no issues. I do remember going to an event out at Kelly's Ford. It was a 3-day event. It was, the eventing, which is, dressage, stadium jumping, and cross country. Anyway, we had our trailer set up out there, and this other trailer shows up, and for the life of me, I don't remember the name of his business. But you talk about a smug, arrogant guy. So I think it was like the second day we were there. He walks over to our setup and introduced himself, but you can tell, at least with me, within the first 30 seconds of meeting somebody, I can really tell what kind of person they are and what their intentions are. He came over and was walking around and telling us that, everything we had was nice and cute, and, he basically kept saying that he's like, you have a lot of the items that, that horse people, that they want, but I have the items that they need, and you really need to start stocking this and, other things, and, X, Y, and Z if you're going to be successful like me. And I just thought, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, needless to say, by the time the event was over, I did not see one person walking away with anything purchased from his unit. And we were selling stuff like crazy. It was an awesome event for us. So I always chuckle. I was like, well, I guess people want their stuff and they don't need his stuff. But, had he have, acted differently, come over and, introduced himself and all of that, properly, like we could have teamed up and worked together. If there was something I didn't have that he did, I'd, send customers back and forth. Like that's the way it's supposed to be. But nah, you need to do this and you need to do that. Okay, thanks, buddy. See you later. I never saw him again. God knows if he's still in business or not. But anyway, fast forward to 2014 is when we opened up our brick and mortar for the first time. And we actually, we opened the brick and mortar on the heels of a company called Crawford Saddlery that had gone out of business. They were in business, oh boy, it's 40 plus years, about 20 minutes north of where we were located. And they were a staple. I mean, everybody went there. And he ultimately just retired. They decided to close the business and retire. So a lot of our sales reps and were like, if you're going to open a brick and mortar, now's the time to do it. So we did. 2014, we opened it up, and we started off obviously slow. We get our name out there, but we were trucking along and doing really well until the middle of 2015. Our, I will say, unnamed competition, because I do not have one nice thing to say about these people or business. In 2015, 1 year later, they decide that they're going to open up a location 1 mile down the road from our store. And I couldn't believe it. I utterly could not believe it. One, I couldn't believe that he was actually allowed to have, get the permits and stuff to do it within the town of Madison, because we were, it's like, it's just too close. The proximity is too close, and you would think that somebody on the board of the town would have been like, "Hey, there's another tack store just the other end of the road. What are you doing?" But nah, they welcomed him with open arms. Yeah, like all greedy towns do, which is whatever. I mean, it's a free country. But the way that this company presented itself, especially right in the beginning, was just unbelievable. I mean, and they're a much, much, much bigger company than I was, especially at that time. Their main location was huge. I mean, huge, and they'd been around a long time. Everybody knew their name. So when they opened up this, second location, I mean, it was the talk of the town and talk of Virginia. People were excited, and I'm like, boy, we're just a little mom and pop here, and then we've got this Walmart of tack stores opening up a mile down the road. I lost a lot of sleep about it. I was really upset and stressed that, we finally, after all this time, we finally got our foot in the door, and now we've got this competition right on the back of our neck. But, that was a tough time. And I think the thing that really upset me the most was the way that this business handled and presented themselves. We had a lot of our customers, went to bat for us, and they weren't mean or violent or anything. They were just like, messaging this company and this individual, like, well, how could you do this? Like, Mad Tack, like they just opened up. Why would you do that? And the funny thing is I saw a lot of his responses, and they were like two responses in one. On one hand, he was like, well, I only thought Mad Tack was consignment and we handle new stuff, and I only thought they handled used. And then on the flip side of it, he's like, I've never heard of Mad Tack. Like, I just didn't know that they even existed until I opened up the second store. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of business model is that? Who goes to a town to open up a store and doesn't even research what other competition there is in the area? I mean, that's just... So it was so two-faced and two-sided. He knew who we were and that we were there. So, but the funny thing is, and this is what a lot of people didn't realize, is that they were so utterly rude to their customers that it ultimately drove everybody down to us. It was crazy the amount of customers that we got because of them treating them poorly. They'd come down to us and we're like, boy, we were just up the road at the other store, and oh man, they're crazy up there. And they were following me around like a shadow and trying to sell me things that I didn't need, and you guys are so laid back here. And so, ultimately, at first I was really upset and stressed out, but in the long run, boy, did it help. It helped like unbelievable. And the funny thing is we ultimately outlasted them. They closed up their store, and they went back to where they have their main store. So it all worked out in the long run. But that's a perfect prime example of where competition kind of ultimately helped out, because they did everything wrong. They did everything wrong at their store, and they treated everybody terribly, and it benefited us. So, I mean, couldn't say enough about how that competition, flip-flopped and ultimately helped us. Another one back in the fairly early stages of Mad Tack was a tack store called Horse and Hound. A lady named Sheila ran it. What a nice lady. A few of our sales reps also repped for her as well. And when we, did the announcement and we were, getting our brick and mortar kind of going, they, a couple of the sales rep put us in contact with her, and she's got a lot of store fixtures, she might sell to you. And we reached out to her and we became friends. And even though we were quote unquote competition, we became friends and we worked together and we sent customers back and forth. We ultimately, bought a ton of extra store fixtures she had. And fast forward all the way up to last year, when she announced that she wanted to retire and close down the business, we went up there and we bought remaining inventory and our engraving machine. She gave us a phenomenal deal on that, and that's been the engraving machine has been fantastic for our business. I really appreciate that. So again, supposed to be competition, which by definition, a lot of people think, it's the enemy. It's the enemy. No, not at all. Another one back in the early times was the Galloping Grape. Kim, what a great lady. I mean, she still is a great lady. I don't mean to say that she's, not anymore. She is. She's a fantastic person. And I would say, at that time, she was probably true definition of competition. She also ran a consignment, section of her store, and she handled, new tack as well. She, I guess it was about an hour or so north of us. She didn't have to help us. She didn't have to reach out to us. But when the announcements came out that we were opening up Mad Tack brick and mortar part of it, she reached out and was so helpful, so unbelievably helpful to us, and giving us tips and tricks and ideas of like products that sell well and products that don't, and companies to do business with that are fantastic, other ones to stay away from. And we were always sending customers back and forth. We'd make phone calls to each other. Hey, heads up, crazy Karen is headed your way. And, then she'd call back or text back later. Yeah, crazy Karen showed up. Thanks for the warning. I mean, it was great. We're constantly helping each other out. Hey, do you have a saddle in stock? I got a customer here looking for a saddle. Do you have this in stock? And I mean, you talk about, competition that was extremely helpful. The Galloping Grape was it. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to get into crazy details here, but Kim is retired and sold the grape. There's new owners in there, and I guess I'm just going to end it there. And if you catch my drift, you can figure it out. But let's just say, no, I'm not going to say anything. Kim isn't there anymore. We're still friends with Kim, and it's sad to see what's happened, but yeah, it is what it is. I'll leave it at that. Another competition for us is Dover Saddlery. I mean, and those of you that don't know or not in this industry, Dover Saddlery, they are the true Walmart of tack stores. They've got something like 30 locations scattered all over the country. Big multi-million-dollar corporation. They only handle English, so that definitely We also handle Western. They don't. So that was a, big uh, factor that separated us. But their closest location is half an hour down the road. Well, as of 2 months ago, they made the announcement that Dover Saddlery is folding. They're going under. Their business model failed, and they're crashing and burning. Now, the location here in Charlottesville, I always got along with the manager. I mean, she's a very nice lady, and even though we didn't work as close as I used to with the Galloping Grape, we would always give each other a heads up. There was times where she called us, had an item or two stolen from the store. Heads up, this is stolen. If it shows up at your store for consignment, let me know. And she would send consigners our way, especially for like the Western stuff that Dover didn't handle. We would give them heads up for a shoplifter or whatever we had in the store, or really a psycho customer, to give them a heads up. And we worked fairly well with them, and I sent a lot of people down their way for an item that people were looking for. I didn't have. Hey, go to Dover, go check Dover. They'll probably have it. So it's bittersweet that they did this announcement that they're going under, because on one hand, it's going to help us. In the long run, it's going to help us. They are running liquidation sales, so right now in the short term, it's hurting bad because everybody's running down there to scoop up the sales. But in the long run, it will help us. But I've had so many people in here like recently, come in and they're like, "Oh boy, did you hear about Dover?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard." And then they're walking around, I hear them mumbling under their breath, like, "Boy, this isn't any Dover here." Yeah, no kidding. And I was like, that's actually a great thing, because my doors are still open. Unlike Dover, my doors are still open. So, if there's something that you're looking for, just let me know, and I'll do my best to bring it in. So, that competition there, I don't know. It's left a big hole in this industry that we're grasping to fill. But anything, it costs money to fill that gap. If there's certain products that I've never really sold because people went to Dover to get, and now they can't, I need to fill that shelf up with that item, and sometimes it's thousands of dollars to get that stuff in. So, that can be tricky, but ultimately we'll be all right. We'll be fine, and actually, we'll be better than fine. The one less competitor out there is going to help for sure. There's also another one. I'm not going to name the name on this one. They were a short-lived one, but this is another example of how you don't handle it. So they were a little bit more gifty kind of stuff, and not terribly heavy on the tack, side of things. But they were, I guess, truly competition. They called themselves a tack store, and that's fine. I mean, it's a free country; you can do what you want. But last year, when we moved locations to our new Madison shop, they did this. They did a post and then a video post about how they've lost direction of their store, and they don't know what to do because Mad Tack moved closer to them, and now their business is in jeopardy, and they don't know what to do. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Don't blame me for your loss of direction. Now, the crazy thing is, when you Google mapped it, our old Orange location was actually closer to them. So we moved farther away. I don't know. Now, a lot of people saw that, and they messaged me, and they're like, "Boy, did you see this?" And some people were like, "Oh, they didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't an attack." And maybe it wasn't, but boy, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way with that. if you've lost your direction with your store, don't blame it on me. You know, buckle down and do something different. Like, I don't know. Maybe she didn't mean anything terrible by it, but I don't know. I didn't like the way that it was handled. And ultimately, they went out of business. Now, I didn't want to see them go out of business. I don't want to see anybody go out of business, especially, mom and pop style businesses, small locally owned businesses, the backbone of this country. I don't want to see any of my competition go out of business. But I don't know. That one was confusing for me. I mean, what's done's done, but they specifically called me out. Or I should say, Mad Tack. Don't do that. That's not right. So one last form of competition, which honestly could be a podcast into itself. Online competition. That is the one that really hurts my business the most. People, and I can't say that I don't blame them, on in one aspect, because it's very convenient. It is very easy to sit at home in your underwear and go on the phone and order something and have it shipped to your door. And nowadays, I mean, it's free shipping and free returns and, buy one, get one half off, or buy one and get 5 free. I mean, the deals are incredible. And you're getting the stuff delivered to you next day. As a brick and mortar, I can't compete with that. There's just absolutely no way to compete with that. I can't eat stuff free shipping and free returns. And a lot of people don't realize the biggest thing that hurts the most about it is some of these online companies are selling things cheaper than I can buy them wholesale. And I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of a podcast or an episode, because that's again a whole episode into itself. How these online companies, since they've got millions and millions of dollars to backing them up, that they can break all the rules. These companies or vendor supply companies have what's called MAP pricing, and it's a minimum advertised pricing. And if you break that, if you go lower than that, you can lose your account. But these companies, and Dover was one. Dover broke the rules all of the time. They would advertise a saddle for like $1,000 less than MAP pricing. They'd advertise it on a Friday, and the sale would run all weekend. And the saddle company get notified, hey, Dover's breaking the rules, but you can't get a hold of anybody till Monday. Well, guess when the sale's over? Monday. Like, it just, so as a small brick and mortar, it's absolutely impossible to compete with that. So what I have to do is I have to sell things that you can't get online. That's why we're so heavily based in the consignment area. But even on the new items, I deal with suppliers and companies that want to work with me, that want to help me out, that don't tolerate this online nonsense that's going on. And I try to work with a lot of smaller businesses, one-on-one, and because it helps them out, it helps me out, and it's stuff that you can't buy online. Now there's some items that I have to stock, and there's fly sprays and shampoos and stuff, and the markup on that is just absolutely terrible. I pretty much break even with most of that stuff, but it's items that you have to have. You got to have them. People are they need the fly spray. You got to have it. But what you hope is that they get something else while they're in, and not just the bottle fly spray. That they, I need a pair of stirrup irons or a bridle or a new saddle pad. Let me get that while I'm here. So you have to differentiate yourself, because if you're just trying to, go head to head with an online, tack retailer, it's practically impossible for a small business to survive against it. So that I would say my one true competition in the sense of the word, that you're really competing, big time competing for the sale. Now that being said, there's companies like SmartPack that realized that they couldn't do it. They couldn't make it. They got bought out by Chewy, and they dumped the whole entire tack line because I guess they realized that they couldn't make any money when they're cutthroat everybody out, and free returns and free everything. Like, it's ultimately going to come back, and hurt you. So anyway, that's kind of the biggest ones that I have on a personal level, or I should say on a business level, not personal, business level. Is online. Online is the one, but the other tack stores that are quote unquote competitors, competition. Most of them I get along with and can be quite beneficial and help out quite a bit. There's other ones that I have absolutely no use for, and I've learned through the years I don't let it get to me as much as I did. I'm still human. That stuff still does bother me, especially like I said when they're calling me out individually. But my advice to you is that competition, it will always be there. It'll always exist, and don't let it make you miserable. Don't let it stress you out. Be diligent, be smart. Obviously, do your homework, but it can be beneficial. It can help you out, and all those years that we used to work with the grape, I miss that time. We had a great working relationship. And Horse and Hound, same thing. Great lady and great store. I miss that. Because they were instrumental in shaping this business, and they didn't need to be. That's the thing. They didn't have to be. They could have looked at us as, oh boy, they're coming to attack me. They're competition, but no, they reached out, they helped, and I really appreciate them doing that. There's other tack stores, they're I don't want to say they're all over the place, but there's plenty more here in Virginia, and some that I really like and I think are really great companies, and other ones I don't. But I use all of those experiences to help my business, to provide products that you can't get other places, and make sure that the customer service is top notch, and to offer services, tack cleaning, and we run events here at the store that you don't see at other competition stores. You have to use it to your benefit. You have to see the good side of it, the bright side of it. So I don't know. I hope all that made sense. Just to sum it up real quick, competition, it'll always be there. For sure, it will always be. There's no way, unless, like I said before, unless you're a utility company, they're about the only ones I could think of, or maybe like a ABC liquor store here in Virginia. There's no competition with that. But no matter what you do, there'll be competition. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it is, but it doesn't have to be. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please let me know, down below if you had any competition stories, anything that you've ran into, and also let me know for future episodes. What would you like to hear me talk about? Do you have any questions for me about this business, about anything? I'll be super happy to discuss anything that you'd like me to talk about. Just let me know. Either message the page, or I think all these podcasts you can comment down below, and just let me know. I'm here for you guys. So thank you so much for tagging along on this episode, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.